platform going in different directions, so I apologize for that. I'll be looking in different ways, but just bear with me for a quick second. I was just updating everyone. This is our East Lansing Human Rights Commission meeting tonight, 7 o'clock, June 2nd, here in minutes, about 9 minutes to be exact. We'll get started. Just really excited. The Human Rights Commission was able to get a lot of work done. We were part of the public health issue, racism as a public health issue, and crisis in our city, and got an ordinance or a resolution that was went through our way up to council and was passed with the work of community staff here in East Lansing. We got through the 1491, which is our disorderly conduct ordinance, revamped that thing. It was disproportionately affecting people of color. So we knocked that out. We worked on some use of force policies and procedures, amongst other things that we've done that we're excited about despite the pandemic, despite doing everything online. And very proud of that work. We're going to continue on as we start to open up as a community, as a society, here specifically in East Lansing. But tonight's meeting, we will be going through some different things. If you don't know, it is Pride Month. And also this month is the Juneteenth Commemoration of the ending of slavery in 1865. So I'll mention a couple of those things tonight along with our agenda notes, and appreciate you being with me. Bear with me here for about 8 minutes or so with dead time, dead space, and appreciate you. I hope this comes your way in a way that's helpful, and some different things that we're talking about and discussing, or things that you incorporate or bring forth together in your community in the work that you do, or the interests or passions that you wake up every day without an alarm clock for. So stay tuned. Hold on for us for a quick second. I'll get rid of this music here in a moment and get serious about the business here. All right, I need to get online here with the commission here. Get my platforms up and running here with this. It is about 7 minutes till, and I'm not even online because I'm talking to you guys and focusing on things that maybe not as important. So I'm going to get myself together here in a quick moment. Also, special thanks to these guys for working so hard on the video. They did an amazing job. This guy operated all those dope drone shots. So these two have to vlog themselves, so you should check them out on their channels. And thank you guys. Dinner's on me tonight, okay? There's some music here. See you soon. And I think we're good to go there. Let me get into this call here. I'm a little bit late by my standards, but we got about 6 minutes left here before we actually get started officially.
He's like, I want to be captured because you had lots of snack teeth last year. Like no teeth.
Oh. How many teeth has she lost?
A lot of them, surprisingly, and there's more to lose, but at least 8 of them by now. So, and this is
my older one is not, like, literally my older one just went to the orthodontist. We've been told to expect braces eventually, but I don't think.
All right, you'll hear a little bit of chatter with some of the commissioners there. I'll maybe turn it down if they get too personal with everything.
It's growing in now. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm glad that afterwards in the front are full in. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so she was ready. She's like, I'm doing my own bow. I want
to turn this down just a little bit.
She was ready.
Nice.
Hi, Chad. Hi, Miss Elaine.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Is this gonna be a quick meeting or no?
Yeah, I think we're a little bit light, on the substance of what we have going on, but I don't think it'll be longer than the last one we had, and that was pretty quick by our standards. So
Yeah. The days feel long. I mean, Carla was just chatting about school and the girls, and the days are running long. Good evening.
Good evening, Crystal.
Aaron, can I just confirm that you want the invites to the Ingham ISD email, correct? Karen?
I think she's looking for her unmute button.
Hey, I just want to confirm you do want the Ingham ISD email for your invites, correct?
Yes, please. And that's,
Okay.
you have been sending them there. Once in a while, I'll get an email to the other email, to the Gmail, but yes. I don't know why yours always go to my clutter, but I know to look there for them, so.
I'm just lucky, I guess.
Justin,
Yes.
I talked to Pat Cannon and he couldn't find his invite to this meeting, so I sent him mine. Is that appropriate?
It should be fine.
Okay.
It'll show up with your name at first.
Good evening, Shelley. Did you get the message that we won't have Catherine tonight, we won't have Liz, and we won't have Dr. Tyler as well?
I didn't know Dr. Tyler.
So if everyone shows up, we should be okay with quorum that's left. With Commissioner Cannon coming in, we'll be all right.
I feel that yawn, Crystal.
Elaine, if you're there, I just had a quick question because I didn't want to put you on a spot while we were live. In regards to our written communication from Carla Forrest Hewitt, are you familiar with who she is and kind of the substance of her written communication? Did you guys talk about this at all by chance?
Well, I didn't know Carla. I didn't talk to her about the information. Is it in regards to the farmers market and their work with DEI?
Yeah, she said she worked with you and she was talking about some different federally stated programs and everything like that. So I didn't want to just start talking and put you out there without you being kind of aware that, that it's there and she mentioned you and everything like that. So I was going to ask you about it.
We just had a conversation about organizing and information around the farmers market so that the language was inclusive.
All right. Hate to interrupt you, Chuck, but we are at 7 o'clock. You ready to go live?
I am. Thank you.
All right.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello. Chuck, are you there?
I am.
Good.
Hi.
Me too. Howdy.
Okay, we are live now, Chuck.
All right. Thank you. We are at our East Lansing Human Rights Commission meeting for June 2nd, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Thank you, 2021. Thank you all for joining us this evening and everyone else who is tuning in. I'll jump right into our opening. The city of East Lansing occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Shinabeg Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi People's Land, ceded in 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. And with that, I'll go into item 1.1. Roll call, please.
Pat Cannon,
I am here in East Lansing, Ingham County, live. Thank you.
Chuck Grigsby,
East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan. I am remote.
Karen Honey,
I'm here participating remotely from Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Carla McWhirter,
Present, attending remotely from East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Liz Miller is absent this evening. Crystal Davis Dunn,
Attending remotely from Ingham County, East Lansing, Michigan.
Catherine Raffiota-Slavinsky is absent this evening. Bassem Sardar,
Present, attending remotely, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
and Quentin Tyler is absent this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Appreciate you. We'll go ahead and move on to item 1.2, and we'll look at our agenda for June 2nd, 2021. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Moved by Commissioner Sarter, seconded by Commissioner Davis Dunn. Is there any discussion in regards to that agenda, or tonight's agenda, I should say? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? So move. We'll move to item 1.3, and we'll look for a motion to approve the minutes for May 5th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner McWhirter and seconded by Commissioner Cannon. Is there any amendments or changes or edits to those minutes? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? All right, so moved. That brings us to item 2 and item 2.1, to Councilmember Bacon's comments.
I have a ton of comments. First of all, I want to congratulate Ms. Elaine Hardy, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion of the City of East Lansing. I can't even speak to the importance of this move and my excitement for the alignment along with the Human Rights Commission and what that can mean for the city moving forward and beyond the city. Just really spreading the spirit and the activities of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it's really an opportunity for all of us here to really kind of reboot in a way and attack some of the big issues that are out here. We all know what they are around housing, around just many areas, and really getting laser focused. And I look forward to her leadership on these subjects and making sure that everything we do, from the budget to everything, has a diversity eyeball on it, and it keeps us, focused on inclusion for everybody. So it's a huge first step. I'm excited for the work, and just letting Elaine know she has our full support. And secondly, I want to congratulate Chuck in the completion of the Police Oversight Commission Study Commission's work. It was a yeoman's work. It was very challenging. I was really proud of how they got their footing up under them and really took off with that work. And I'm excited for the opportunities. Did we get everything exactly how we wanted it? No. So that probably means it was good work, because that's just how it goes. So I'm excited for the work that they've done. I'm excited to see the commission. I'm excited for council to work through their pieces, and clearly we're on the right track. It's exciting to see all these different things. And last but not least, I'm just looking forward to you guys and just us refocusing. This is a great team, and just finding the next issue and digging in on it, and really getting back to some community conversations and all the stuff that you guys really want to do, and just getting that stuff on the agenda. Hopefully, re-engaging people live, having coffee, and touching people again. I'm looking forward to it. I think we've done a lot of work in the absence of people, and I'm looking forward to working with people again. So, congratulations to everybody on just a ton of good stuff happening.
Thank you, Councilmember Bacon. Well said in regards to Director Hardy and the study group. You're right. There were some amazing people doing a lot of good work, and it was just great to be a part of that. And so we are very, very happy and proud to get to where we're at now. And thank you for being a liaison for that as we went along with everything. And we are definitely, as a commission here, looking forward to getting back to people business. So appreciate the comments. Does anyone have any follow-up or questions for Councilman Bacon while he's here up and running? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 2.2, staff liaison, Hardy and Newman, please.
First, I want to thank Councilmember Bacon for his comments and support. I know, like many of you, he's committed to the work of social justice and anti-racism. I'm proud to work for a city that has put the full force of their commitment behind that work, and you should be proud too. I know that it is very important to Councilmember Bacon and several members of the council that we continue to move East Lansing towards becoming a fully anti-racist city and organization. And I'm happy to be a part of that. And I also wanted to make sure that I recognize our HR director, Shelley Newman. Since I was appointed to this position, she and I have been joined at the hip in so many very critical ways. And she has been a wealth of knowledge and support. And I am thankful that she has been there for this work, and that we have her. We're a very lucky city to have her. With that, I don't have a whole lot to report. I do want to make sure that I mention that the HRC at our last meeting wanted us to reach out to the Housing Commission so that we can begin some dialogue, and we have done that. I've actually reached out to our housing administrator and the director of planning to start talking about what that would look like. And so Commissioner Davis Dunn, I'm going to be reaching out to you personally in the next week or so to kind of talk through some ideas that we have along that line. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'm next up. Thanks for the nice words, Elaine. It's been a pleasure getting to work with you in your new role, and I look forward to working with you as the director in a continued capacity. You're going to do a great job for our organization, and I'm really thankful for you. Two things to report to the commission this evening. First, last month we heard from two representatives from ASMSU on the Crown Act, and wanted you all to know that we did actually put the language that they recommended into two internal policies at the city level. We put them in our newly implemented EEO policy, as well as our harassment and discrimination policy. So those policies go to every single new hire and existing employee in the city. And so those are the words that we're now operating with in our policies. So they identify those definitions under the race category in the protected classes. So the timing was exceptionally good for that presentation, that we were able to do that like seamlessly and move forward with that. So we're really proud of that and wanted you all to know. Second of all, with the announcement from Councilmember Bacon and Elaine moving forward in the director capacity, it's the perfect time for her to transition into the lead staff liaison for the HRC role. So we're going to be kind of switching gears here. Elaine is going to be your go-to staff liaison person. I will always be her backup, and I will be your backup. If you ever have a question or concern, I'm available. You've got my number and my email. So I look forward to working with her in this just transition. She's going to be super great. You know that. She's been with us for the last year. We've appreciated her presence, and I'm really happy that she'll be taking on this new role. So that is all for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Did you want to add in there to Councilmember Bacon?
Yeah, I just wanted to put something on your radar. The upcoming 54B expungement clinic that's coming up here. I want to put an eye to that for human rights. We're looking at the volume. They're going to allow. They're filling their ranks. There's 100 people allowed through that. I'm going to put on your radar both community development block grant for the future to make sure we have a bigger hand in that, and maybe developing a process over here around having a more diverse pool of candidates, and then the marijuana dollars that we placed in the general fund. Looking at that around, particularly around the areas of expungement, it'd be something I'd like to look to in the future. So just put those on your radar.
Thank you. I just had a quick. I think I'm maybe the only one that's sitting here that doesn't know what the EEL policy is.
You mean EEO? EEO.
Okay.
So equal employment opportunity.
Okay. No wonder I didn't know. I gotcha. Okay. And then the staffing, when is that going to kind of transfer over to Director Hardy? Is that, you guys know yet by chance?
With the July meeting?
Gotcha. Okay. And that is very, very awesome for the city of East Lansing to take that presentation by ASMAU, MU to then incorporate that. We got lucky with timing. So I just want to salute the city and probably Director Hardy and Shelley for getting that thing to really get incorporated very, very quickly. It was a very great presentation for us to see, and then now to see it actually go into something that we are part of is a great step, an action step into some different things that we're talking about addressing here as a commission. So,
Mr. Chairman, that was all Shelley.
Okay, there you go. Props out to Shelley then. Yes, Commissioner Honey.
Can I ask a question of Councilmember Bacon? You mentioned the expungement, and I'm sorry if you said it and I kind of zoned out for a second. Did you say a date, Ron, of when that expungement event in Ingham County is going to happen?
If he had to,
it would be something we could consider incorporating into a coffee and conversation, but actually a follow-up. I know I was listening to the news today and listening to Dana Nessel report from Flint at their event. They said they had just lines and lines of people. So I am very curious to see how that's going to go, and what we're going to learn from the cities that have done it first. But thank you for that. And I don't know how we can, if we have I'm sure that it's being advertised, is what I'm trying to say, right, through different various city sources. But if there is a shareable event about it, I would love to have that shared with me so that I can share it within my other networks too. That's possible through email or social media or whatever. If someone's got some sort of something they could send to me, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey. Did you want to chime in, Commissioner Davis Dunn? I think I saw your hand.
I was just diddling with Commissioner Honey was sharing that if there was some type of advertisement, because I don't believe I've heard about it within my networks. So if we can get some shareable flyer or something, definitely want to share something like that.
Absolutely, I'm interested as well. This just hit my radar today, and then I saw the media release kind of simultaneously. So I'm very interested in this moving forward. So we're in the same boat. We'll get on top of that.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. That was our most engaging staff report we've had in a long time. There's a lot of good stuff going on in there. So thank you. We'll move on to item 3.1. Before we go to that, Justin, do we have anyone on the line by chance?
Yes, we have one attendee on the meeting.
Okay. Pursuant to MCL, and this is item 3.1, 15.263 subsection 1, limiting public comment to 5 minutes per individual for today's electronic meeting. Is there a motion for that rule?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Kent. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Davis Dunn. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? So the motion passes to 5 minutes per individual this evening. Whenever you're ready, Justin, please go ahead.
Okay, Laura Anderson. You are going to be, you're able to address the commission if you would like.
Thank you for the opportunity, but I'm just observing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, Laura. Appreciate you. Is there anyone else on the line by chance?
No.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 3.3, written correspondence. And we have written correspondence from Carla Forrest Hewitt that came in on May 6th in regard to some initiatives that she is, and I'm assuming she is working for and about as far as getting the awareness there. And I know she had a little bit of work or contact with our director, Hardy, in regards to some of those different initiatives and us collaborating together. Did anyone have any comments or responses to the written communication?
I think it's really exciting to see this work that's being done surrounding farmers markets, because anybody that's attended farmers markets knows that they traditionally tend to be very white centric, and so really trying to engage more vendors of color and consumers of color, I think, is really important. And I had a follow-up question that I don't know if we don't have her on the line or anything, but I was curious. She mentioned that in the winter market, there were five vendors that were, from the BIPOC community, and that only 2 had applied for the summer session. And I don't know, again, if I missed this, because I did kind of just skim it, but I was wondering if they had followed up as to why three of the 5 vendors that had participated over in the winter had not applied. I didn't know whether they knew about it, whether they did. I don't think that they would have had a good experience, but I was curious if there was any follow up about that, about why 3 of those 5 hadn't reapplied for the summer. That was kind of my one take after reading.
Oh, so in my conversation, and I don't know if Justin has more information with regard to this, but my conversation with Carla, it was her thought then that it was prohibitive because of the cost of the application and to participate in the market. And part of the conversation that she and I had, and it was kind of an informal conversation, was really about starting to look at ways in which we might be able to provide a subsidy for those individuals to be able to participate in the market fully in the summer. So we haven't fleshed any of that out, and I don't know if Justin, if you have anything further to add, but that was our conversation with Carla, the market manager.
Yes, I was going to say the exact same thing. Is that the full season of the market, the traditional market, is 22 market days, and there's a cost of for the full season $440 for non-residents, as opposed to the winter market, which had no cost for vendors because of the funding that came from the DDA. And so there is a cost factor there, as well as a commitment to a longer season. So I'm not sure of any specific reasons other than those 2 things were definitely factors.
Well, that's definitely good to know for our process of moving forward, right? I do want to particularly say that I think it's such great work getting the project fresh, and the double up bucks, those are, I think, really important. So I think that's a huge step in terms of attracting more regular folks, because I know that that many people automatically assume that farmers markets are out of their price range, and so I would definitely like to see how we can go about doing, once again, more media, like advertising, to letting people know that, because that's really important development.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please go ahead, Commissioner Davis-Dunn.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Coney, for asking that question. Sorry. And follow-up question for both Justin and Director Hardy. The application fee. What are those costs covered? And then I know that there was funds from the winter. Is there a way to apply for more funding? I know we talked about maybe figuring out how to subsidize or the costs, but just curious just for information as to what those fees cover.
Yeah, I can provide a little bit of context, and the annual vendor fee is something that is set on the fee schedule approved by council as a part of the annual budget process. Part of that is designed to offset the cost of staffing the market. It does not fully cover the cost of staffing the market, but it is designed, as it's listed as a space rental fee. So the vendors are renting the space within the market throughout the season, and that goes toward the staff costs for producing the market, as well as advertising and operating supplies that we use to advertise the market and make sure that community members have a good experience there.
Thank you. And then, Councilman Bacon, I don't know, with the funding that just came in for the relief package to various municipalities, is there funding available to kind of help support EI initiatives with the market? Is that a larger question?
That's a good question. I think that's still being ferreted out. The money came in just in May, and they're still sorting out how to apply it and what the rules actually mean. So that's a good question to ask. And maybe not even from that. It could be around healthy food. It could be around a lot of other ways that we can skin the cat. So we'll look at it. I agree with you. There should be, I think, just about as important as it gets, healthy food.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to set up at least some type of kind of 3-year, 4-year package while we have funds available, if possible, so that we can really get the market off to a good start and have an opportunity to recruit more diverse vendors. I just love that as an option, because I know Ingham County, we're looking at ways to give money back to residents, and that was one of the ways that they're looking at supporting, various vendors and local markets. So.
All right, thank you. So I don't know. So how much does it cost for the winter season? I think someone said, I think Justin, you said that the DDA took care of that cost. Does anyone know what that would be if the DDA did not pay for vendors?
Well, that was a pilot program that we ran specifically as a part of the Daytime, Nighttime, Anytime Place project. And so it's hard to separate what that would specifically look like for just the winter market.
Gotcha.
The question has been asked if we want to continue a winter market in the future, and we would, if that is the case, we would need to do some evaluation of what those costs would look like. But it was wrapped into the larger Place project, which had the crowdfunding campaign and a lot of support from various areas. So I don't know that I would be able to give you a specific number for just the market portion.
No worries. Thank you. I was just curious about it. So no worries at all. Does anyone else have any more comments or discussion in regards to our written communication 3.3 or anything related to that?
No, I think once the flyers go out about dates and locations, it would be nice if we can make sure we have that to pass out to amongst our group.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis-Dunn. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 4.1, old business, and an update on the HRC complaint status that we were reviewing here last month. I think you're up, Shelley.
Yes. So I reached out to Deputy Chief Gonzalez to hear about the status of our HRC complaint, and he indicated that the complaint the investigation has actually been completed. Everyone's been interviewed. It's been compiled and typed. And now it's pending review by the police chief. And the police chief is the one that comes up with a final determination and disposition for the investigation. So we are waiting on his review to hear the findings.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or inquiries in regards to the status of the complaint right now?
Just curious about how that gets communicated to us once that has been decided. Shelley, would that be something that we would just wait till the next meeting to find out, or would you generally send a letter around to the commission to let us know how it's been resolved? What's the typical protocol for that?
There really is no typical protocol, Karen, because it hasn't been handled this way in the past.
Right.
I'd be happy, depending on the timing of our next meeting, I'd be happy to share if I get the outcome of that in the next week or so. I will definitely share that with the commission prior to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for the update, Shelley. Appreciate you. All right. So we'll go on to item 4.2, community engagement plans, which is very open-ended and very broad. Just with the uncertainty of our situation, I know we were possibly going to get an update from you, Shelley, maybe on the June 7th criteria and how things were going. Do you know anything more in regards to maybe our flexibility with meetings and coffee conversations and things like that being in play by chance?
So we have yet to, are you talking about live commission meetings or are you talking about other events?
I'm talking about pretty much everything, but I was referring to actually just doing the community events and the ability to start planning for that in a way that's realistic. Or if we're in a situation where right now maybe we should just focus on maybe doing it online or what. Just get a perspective on maybe some other moving parts outside of our control.
Right, I would say as long as community events are in compliance with state directives and local directives, they'd be fine to move forward with. Regarding in-person commission meetings, I think we'll be hearing from our city attorney with an opinion soon about when those can happen. I think there are still requirements regarding room size and capacity limits, as well as social distancing requirements to consider. So that applies both internally to the city, and of course there are different rules with establishments like restaurants and such.
Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just trying to get some clarification before we start talking about some things possibly that are moot point at this point. Please go ahead, Commissioner Davis-Dunn.
I think Commissioner Cannon had his hand up first.
Commissioner Cannon, please go ahead.
Yeah. I'd just like to say that while meeting via Zoom has not been ideal, I am one who is grateful for the technology that at least allows us to meet this way. But I am sure that I am among many who look forward to meeting in person again, including not only our commission meetings, but also other events. And soon, Karen and I will be talking about our recommendation on resurrecting the coffee conversations events. We're going to propose that we have our first event on July 11th, anticipating that by that date, we'll have the opportunity to meet in person with some restrictions.
Is this an okay time to talk about that?
Absolutely.
We were gonna wait till commissioner comments, but since Pat brought it all the way up, I will second that. And especially now, based on what Shelley said, it does sound like if what we talked about was outdoors at an outdoor cafe, like we've done in the past, and it sounds like that would be perfectly within compliance of local establishments. And so we wanted to just get, buy-in from the rest of the commission to really start. We just really thought that if we're gonna start up with our coffee and conversation again, that we'd really love to be able to do it live. And so we came up with that date because it's the Sunday after 4th of July. We figured that's a time that a lot of people will be in town. That gives us another month into the, recovery, from the pandemic. And if it's okay with Pat, I'll just say that we actually already discussed, Pat's been really sharing a lot of information about reparations, and we kind of thought that would be a great topic to start with. So we wanted to know what people thought, and we hadn't talked about meeting again after this meeting and inviting anybody else that I don't know if we're an official subcommittee or what. It doesn't really matter, inviting anybody else that wants to be part of this planning process for us. And if people feel like we're really ready to go ahead with monthly coffee and conversations, then maybe we should broaden, we should figure that out and meet and, start throwing around some different topics and some different dates and, kind of what we did a year and a half ago when different people picked different topics and we looked for locations. So I'm ready to move forward on that and meet as a subcommittee. And with anybody else that wants to join us, Kat and I did talk about, we don't necessarily want just two white people to be planning this coffee conversation about reparations. So we just want to open it up to anybody else on the commission that might want to join us. And we thought that we'd also reach out to some local, just let some local, like Sarah Anthony, some local public officials know, not that they would have any professional capacity, but that we're doing this and maybe they'd want to join us and be part of the conversation. So, and then our real hope is that if it was something that was of great interest to the public, we really look at this as just a launching off point for a larger community conversation. So if we had people show up and be interested in this topic, then we were hoping to come back to the commission and say, hey, can we maybe do something a little bit of a bigger event about this? So that's what we talked about when we met briefly, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday. Kat, fill in anything I might have missed.
We talked about if we're going to go back to coffee conversations, perhaps at this meeting begin to identify other topics for those events in addition to reparation. On one hand, we don't think we have a lot of information on reparation, but on the other hand, we can learn from some municipalities around the country that have begun to embark on that. And one of the examples, we talked about this before, is Evanston, Illinois, that has taken some steps in that direction several months ago. I sent you an article that came out after they first began that, and they're more recently, thanks to the splendid help of Shelley, your miracle worker, thank you. She found the Bloomberg article for us that showed up on my iPhone about the Evanston's issues that they ran into in trying to go forward. And I think we can probably learn from some of the challenges that they face. We can do it differently or better, but we can be prepared for some of the things that they encountered. Thank you again, Shelley. It was terrific.
What I wanted to say, according to the contacts that I have from DHS, that July 1st, we're supposed to, the ban around like restrictions around gatherings and things of that sort is supposed to be lifted. So July 11th might actually be, a tangible date. And then to add to the conversations about reparations. So in my job search, now that I do, that I was looking for various, new hubs. And so I ran across makemymove.com, which you get paid to move to like different cities and things of that sort. They're looking for remote workers. But what was interesting about the various kind of benefits that they were offering for people to move to their local areas was tax exemptions were up to, upwards of $16,000. And so I'm thinking about social determinants of health and, redlining and other things that restricted Black economic growth. Reparations can look something in that regards. I think I mentioned to tax exemption. So I talked about the property tax exemption that East Lansing offer, which I need to talk to council about some of the restrictions that need to be updated, or the limitations need to be updated. But I think that's something that we may consider versus forwardly promising funds or reparations, and looking at what we could do to make East Lansing a more welcoming place for people of color, as well as recognize the history of this area, and the larger United States. So that's just my thoughts, and I can forward that information. But it's a lot of like nuggets of different ways that local municipalities are offering stipends or benefits for individuals trying to recruit them to that area. And I think we can use it as a DEI initiative. So thank you guys.
Yes, Commissioner Cannon, please go ahead.
I want to follow up on something that I raised with Karen in our meeting, and she identified it just briefly. As I'm aware that Karen and I are each or both not persons of color, and I'm just curious how people of color on the commission feel about these two white folks taking the lead on the subject of reparation, and what you think about it, particularly Chuck and Crystal and others.
Can I take that one?
Yes, please go ahead, Councilman Bacon.
Yeah, I think it's a white folks issue, frankly. I mean, these conversations have been had in the inner sanctums of the African American community for many moons. It's almost pretty banal at this point. So I think it's important that these conversations are had. I think the tricky thing for you guys, I think if you open this thing, I think you first have to establish this whole process with a question: what do you perceive reparations at? That's the first question you have to ask. So you're going to get 50 different answers. Then I think you got to establish a baseline, and then what you're probably putting out is a series of events or a curriculum almost. If you open this,
Shut the door, son.
you got to be
I can
ready
hear you.
for what comes behind it. You're going to get a lot of things you're not going to anticipate. So if that July date is it, you'll have to have a follow-up kind of already scheduled with what's the next question or what's the action items. You're going to get a lot more out of this, a lot of resistance from a lot of spaces you don't anticipate. I mean, this is probably the trickiest issue that there is, but I think you're on the right track. I think it should come from you guys, and I think it's very powerful coming from you asking the right questions. And I think it's great because these conversations have been had for years. So
thank you. I'll consider that support.
Yeah, support.
Thank you, Ron, for all of that. What I was going to say, which is why I tried to say that I definitely know that when we present, I've always viewed these coffees and conversations not at all as us being experts reporting on something, but us initiating community conversations. And so we humbly recognize what a huge issue this is. Which is why we really wanted to have a good conversation with the commission about, are people on board? Is this too giant of a bite off? I mean, I'm not afraid of controversy. And I just want to make sure that when we advertise it, we do it in a way that says, we want to initiate an initial community conversation to get some input and to gauge public interest. And we even thought that wherever we advertise and send out invitations, which we want to be pretty deliberate also about inviting certain groups of people and making sure, since we're starting this up again after a long absence, I think it's going to be important that we really do some good outreach. And we thought, well, we talked about actually attaching a couple articles for people to read, if you don't know what and people, obviously some people will do it and some people won't, but we like to give people the opportunity to do some reading ahead of time to maybe come to the conversation. But I know, Ron, I'm a little nervous because we have no idea what to expect, but that's why we would really just make it very clear that all we're doing is hosting a conversation and then moving forward from there and fully anticipating that it's going to be a hot topic. And so, yeah, is the commission on board with jumping in on some follow-up stuff if we actually start this? I want to know what everyone else thinks.
I would recommend you have an expert handy.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's a great idea. And so feel free to offer up some experts. If that's not us, if you have some ideas about that. And if we have to push it back and do this one in August and something maybe a little bit more of a gentle jump off point in July, that's okay too. I am very open. I just say I think July 11th is a good date to start an initial community conversation, coffee and conversation. And I'm prepared to do this reparations with some support or put it off another month and do something different. Crystal, I think you have a lot to offer, and I was going to ask you to help plan this with us. I know you've been really busy. Congratulations on your MSW. That's amazing. that's a really lot of work to do while raising a kid and doing everything else you do. So proud of you. And I don't know if that frees up more of your time or not, but
thank you. Yes, I didn't realize how much of insanity I was operating in. But once some chapters close, I can finally exhale, and so I'm inviting peace in my life. So I will let you know. I told everyone in June that I could start, maybe committing to things, but I'm not there yet. So like just getting prepared. I don't know.
totally gotcha. We're just like a fun club place.
But yes, but yes, I am definitely interested in supporting it to the best of my capacity. I was just even thinking about messaging, even calling it reparations, when we're still in this era of looking at understanding what social determinants of health is. And I think creating some type of program or funding, even the way they have with the COVID relief funding that the city is offering for individuals that were impacted by that, we can start developing funding for that. Oftentimes, the grants that I work on, all the barriers and loops that they put in place is a lot of coded language, really to exclude the most vulnerable, the people that are most in need. Like I worked on a lead grant, and it had a bunch of hoops. Even with some of the capital area funding for house improvement, the home improvement with the income qualifying and the liens that are placed on home or the second mortgage, it deters people. And so looking at the article, what was happening in Evanston, really looking at how things are worded, even looking at the definition of reparations is really interesting, but really tying it into more of the systemic impacts and looking at social determinants of health and making funding more available, or making whatever the program or funding or idea might be really specifically tied to the history of disenfranchisement and things of that sort, versus just saying that, oh, we are going to do this reparation package and amends have been made. Like there's work to do. It's a continuous effort. But I think in that spirit of equity, this is where the work begins. And I think that's kind of where we should probably, or the idea of really starting it off is striving more towards equity, so that we can ideally meet equality or reach equality. So just some thoughts.
Thank you, Crystal, for that. Chuck, may I follow that up?
Please go ahead, Commissioner Cannon.
First, July 11th on one hand may sound like it's coming up pretty quickly, considering we've never had any public events on this, or other than at our commission meetings, I don't think we've had any conversations on it in public with Lansing city government. But we know that these conversations are going to be going on for a long time. So considering that, we don't think July 11th is too soon to start. And I've spoken briefly with Chuck about the possibility of engaging other commissions, more particularly the Housing Commission, and hopefully at some point Chuck will be talking with the chair of the Housing Commission and see when they want to get plugged in with us, if at all. But I got the impression that they would definitely like to have some conversations on that with us. I'm still supportive of July 11th as a day to point to. And is that decision, when we move forward, going to be first up to the East Lansing City Council? Or do we have enough guidance otherwise to know that we could hold an outdoor meeting?
If I understand your question correctly, yes, I think we have been laid out the guidelines that we can work with. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, in regards to doing something outside protocol with what we have in place.
That's correct.
Okay. So go ahead.
Colvin, Chuck, Carla, and Bassine, Crystal, are you supportive of us moving forward with that July making reparations, even though it's a big one? Our first topic, presenting it in a way we are not the experts. We are just initiating the conversation. And then maybe with the help of Ron or Elaine, trying to identify a couple folks, one or two people that we could invite that would be able to have, be more of an expert than we are. Also understanding that they would not be in the position of having all the answers either. Just someone there that would, be able to help guide us along. Are folks supportive of that? What do people think?
Yes, I'm supportive of it.
Okay.
Thing.
Yeah.
The only concern I would have is the timing. It's better not to postpone it until fall, but this time of the year, I don't know in terms of the turnout.
It's really true, and especially it being the first month I seen, we might only have a couple people, but that's okay. We got to start somewhere.
Yeah, one person at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Pat and I talked about how we had some of our best coffee and conversations were ones where only 2 or 3 people showed up, but we had really excellent conversations. So I feel ready to try this, and I guess that what I'd like to focus on then is working with Pat and anyone else that might want to work with us, and just let me know, and I'll send out an invitation or something for a meeting in the next week or two to really focus on planning this one, and then maybe after that go broader and start storming future topics. I don't know what people think. I don't want to bite off too much right now.
But it isn't the first step, and it's a beginning, and I think we need to start somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope each of you will take the time to read that Bloomberg article. It's fairly lengthy, but good information in there. One of the points that was made is there were some people who said to the leaders of this effort in Evanston is, I'm supportive of what you're doing, but don't call it reparation.
Yeah.
What should we call it? And I think she said, call it whatever you want, but not reparation. And I heard the Senate minority leader said, that's Mitch McConnell, he said, I for one can identify something that happened 150 years ago, and he said, I wasn't around then, and I don't expect to be held accountable for what may have been done at that time. So those are 2 extreme points of thinking on this.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was my comment earlier, and it's not something that happened 150 years ago. These are things that we're dealing with daily, presently, and it's just called something different. And it's very covert. I think I shared with this group my experience of buying a home in East Lansing, and if those who know me, I'm very persistent. I don't take no for an answer. But there are not many people like me who will hold people feet to the fire, pull out a manual and policy, decide now, do your job, and I'm entitled. So definitely thoughts to definitely have to combat on both spectrums that, conversations that might come up during this. But yeah, in full support.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy to see what you guys come up with, and let me know how I could be lending hand.
For starters, we would like you to be there, Crystal.
I don't have anything on the calendar as of yet, but I will keep July 11th open.
I was even thinking that maybe we should be careful with the wording of how we advertise at Crystal. So I might, when Pat and I meet and whoever else joins us, what I'd like to do is kind of send around a quick draft to everybody for everyone's input before we actually put it out there for social media release and everything. And maybe we call it reparations, something like I'd like to title it a way that isn't to people and that acknowledges, right? So I just need to do some brainstorming about that. And Crystal, if you have any thoughts about that, please share them with me. About we could even call it to not shut people down before we even hold this event, right? So I think we can be clever with the wording of how we advertise it and how we describe it. And I would be open to any input from folks on with ideas about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey. I just wanted to make sure, I think Commissioner McWhorter wanted to chime in for a second there, or I could be mistaken. Did you want to chime in at all, Commissioner McWhorter?
No, I think Crystal has covered everything I was going to say better than I could have said it. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I wanted to sit back and kind of just listen. Yeah, I'm very supportive of the topic and the issues around that. And I'm kind of torn with this because when I think about the optics of the word reparations and how that just turns a lot of people off, or it doesn't really help the conversation get started in some ways because of a lot of different reasons. One of them being what was mentioned earlier about everyone having different definitions of what that is. But I do know that the reparations has been applied here for other groups and been given opportunities in other ways under the hat of reparations. So I will say that. And I don't know, when it comes to where we're at today and what we're talking about, if that's very important. But I think at some level, it is what it is, and it needs to be acknowledged for what it is. And maybe we can, as a group, come up with something that's nice and pretty to bow it, so people are a little bit more comfortable with it. That's fine, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's not an easy conversation for a lot of people. It's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the issue and how to attack it or how to start the healing when it comes to the advocacy of it. So some of it, I just don't think we can get around, in my humble opinion, on that. I was kind of with Commissioner Sardar about my concerns about the time and just really it getting turned around. But then my mind was changed very quickly when Commissioner Honey talked about, one or two people, that's fine to start. Commissioner Cannon said just to start, it's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be this big old thing. And that's great. And I'm with that. If I had my dream opportunity, I would love to be able to have someone come and speak with us or speak with the subgroup who's working on this from an expert perspective background, in a way that we can be a little bit more armed with how to present this to the community in a way that we don't swing and miss when it comes to maybe doing our first one of the year. But those are just my reservations and my opinions for what it's worth. But I'm all about it. I just, it's one of those things I think is very complex, and how you go about it. You can go in a lot of different ways. We talked about the housing. Commissioner Cannon, I am playing phone tag with the chair of the Housing Commission. I wanted to talk with her before our meeting tonight, and they're meeting on Thursday, but we didn't get a chance to connect before our meeting tonight. So that is in the works. And, I'd be interested to see kind of really what the version of the HRC in Lansing may be thinking about when we talk about collaborative groups and commissions and different things, and really opening this thing up because we all have the same issues in different communities that we're dealing with. And I think the more people we get involved, the better. Maybe not for this very first one, but I'm just saying out loud when we talk about collaborative efforts with other people who are involved on this advocacy work.
Thank you for that, Chuck. I want to remind folks, when we first started our Coffee and Conversations events, Mayor Stevens, who was a member of the commission at that time, said he thought it was important that when we raise these topics, we don't hold ourselves out as experts on this subject, but rather just facilitators in some beginning conversations. And I think if we look at it that way, we can go forward. But like you, I think the better prepared we are to deal with some things that might come up, the better off that first meeting might go. And I have a question for Ron. Has the city council had any conversations on this since we raised this subject several months ago?
No, not yet.
Okay. Are you thinking, Ron, that we should get their blessings before we go forward with this, or not necessary?
Not necessary.
Okay, good.
All right. So if I understand the process of where we're at right now, we're looking ideally for July 11th, the topic of reparations or whatever that end up will be. The subcommittee is going to meet in between today and that time frame, get some data, information, collaboration, some things out there. And then we will come back here as a group on the looks like the 7th. Is that it? The 7th is our meeting that we would have in July. And then we would have that event on the 11th. So it kind of really works out, especially if we're planning on still meeting and going forward with our July meeting for this year in a way that we will, I think, and the subgroup committee will have an opportunity to really get some good work done and then come back to the group and then we can implement. My question would be as far as advertising and getting the word out, and because I know we're transitioning from liaisons and all that kind of stuff, and just really making sure that we, are fair to that process and respectful of how we can get that done in a way that's professional and engaging to specific people in the neighborhood as well. So, or the community, I should say. That would be my only little question I would think about when it comes to that. If you guys have any feedback on that at all.
Would you feel more comfortable, Chuck, if we pushed our first meeting back to August?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just trying to be appreciative of our very first event and publicizing it in a way where, we can get to as many people as possible, even though our standards are low with what may happen in the first one. But just really that energy around the issue as we continue on talking about this and going forward. I just really want to make sure that there's a great opportunity to be able to kind of have that be one of the main keys. And I'm only going by from our community input meeting that we had on the other commission and how it was just done so well and streamlined to coming out to a great involvement with community, because I believe some of those aspects were really done well in a way that we got it out there and people had a chance to kind of digest it, absorb it, think about it. And then by the time we had our meeting, it was very, very productive. So I'm just thinking from that perspective.
I agree. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, I wanted to get Shelley's input then on that. So if Shelley, would that be something that you, Elaine, would be able to kind of create an event for? And when would you want that? Because what I'm thinking is, I'd like to meet in the next week or two, at least get our out what we're going to be talking about, how we're going to advertise, get that to you within whatever time frame you think you need it, 2 to 3 weeks beforehand. I'm thinking, and even if we're not, that'll still give us time to prepare for the meeting, even already advertising. We could still be doing our homework and meeting. Does that make sense? But when want something from us, Shelley, in terms of
I'm looking at my calendar, Karen. I appreciate that. Our communication department does a good job of, they will do a press release as they have in the past. I think that we have seen it generate, that press release generates quite a bit of publicity. It shows up in papers. It does show up, so that's a really positive thing. They also create a Facebook event for us. I'll share on Twitter, Instagram. But I'm just looking at the holiday and the way it falls, right?
Yeah.
So we should definitely, if it's the 11th, you typically release it a week beforehand, but that would put us right on the July 4th holiday. So that means it would need to be released before the July 4th holiday.
That's okay. Why don't we
released probably closer to the event, the week of the event.
What if we aim for that Wednesday before because a lot of times people Thursday, before that for the July.
Son, you're disturbing my meeting.
That Wednesday, which I think for 3rd, 2nd is gonna be.
Yep. That would be the 29th or 30th.
29th. What if we aim
Son,
for something by about
you're disturbing my meeting.
And that would be great. And I think following Councilmember Bacon's suggestion of keep it simple and keep it a question or like you were saying, what is reparations, and then just a time and location.
Okay, perfect. I like Dawson's idea. I don't know if people read in the group chat said something like maybe the theme of conversation itself could be, if it's not reparations, what should we call it? And so, we could just, start with some sort of question like that, something very, very similar to that. So Crystal suggested that Pat and I just come up with a meeting date, which will happen hopefully in the next couple weeks, and send around to anybody that can participate. If we send around a date and literally nobody else can do it, but everybody else can do it the next day, we'll just be flexible about that. I don't do doodle polls, but we'll come up with a meeting time, Kat and I, in the next week or two, if that works for people. And send it out. Whoever wants to join us can join us. So,
Karen, just for starters, since we're all here now, I think I heard everyone say that July 11th is open on their calendar, it could be open. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, I'm talking about us just having an initial meeting to plan this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to try to do that in the next week or even the next week or 10 days if possible. So I'll send a letter around to the commission with a meeting date after Pat and I have a chance to talk. Which for both of us. But yeah, I say we go for the 11th. Yeah. What time are we doing it?
2 o'clock
2 o'clock.
or 1 o'clock, somewhere in there.
Then we'll figure out the location. We're gonna call around coffee houses and find out who's open, who's got the biggest patio area, and then we'll have that. We'll figure that out.
I don't want any businesses get mad at me, but I know downtown the Blue Owl area is a great area to have some of these conversations just with community stuff because we have the patio out there for the city. It's outside. It's it has a lot of energy, a lot of people. I'm just saying that not have to, but I just throw that seed in your air, in the air for you. But anything in any place in East Lansing would be great. So I just want to
I
put
think
that
the
plug in.
Blue would be a great place to start. That sounds great to me. So we'll consider that one for sure.
Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Councilmember Bacon, please go ahead.
Yeah, just for Commissioner Honey and Commissioner Cannon, as you're working through this, I always like to remember that when you're talking about reparations or restoration or whatever you end up wanting to call it in the process, all the modern history of things that require repair, but even remembering that there was compensation for emancipation all the way back. So whenever you're in doubt and you're like questioning what's going on here, it's just a business conversation. The compensation in Washington, D.C., when slaves were emancipated, Lincoln said no more slavery in D.C., slave owners were compensated for removing slaves from Washington, D.C. So even back in the formation, all these decisions along the way, it gets very emotional and all these types of things, but it's really it's an economic conversation at all times. So if you're going to get some stuff. I'm really, I say I'm kind of fearful for you, but I'm excited for the conversation to be had. But just keeping in that tone and in the back of your mind, ultimately, it's an economic conversation. That's all it's ever been, for many perspectives. And that's the economic repair portion that has never even been formally addressed. It's been sitting in different bills and different things for a long time, but other decisions economically have been made. Even so that just shows you, even on the other side of this conversation, people were compensated along the way, including slaveholders. So it's a conversation that's long overdue, and you can feel confident in knowing that you're on the right side of the conversation, no matter which way it goes. But it could go a lot of different ways. I've seen this conversation play out a lot of different ways, but I'm excited for us to have it in East Lansing. So
thank you, Councilmember Bacon. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm going out of turn. I was just going to respond and say, if you have any articles, links, or anything that you think would be helpful for us to read, Ron, or Elaine, I'd love for you to send me. I like to study this kind of stuff, so send me some links. Whatever. I want to be prepared as much as possible. Thoughts and perspectives. So please, anything that you have that you want to send my way would be great. And again, ideas about who we might be able to reach out to in terms of learn more and maybe someone being willing to actually be there with us on the 11th.
All right, thank you.
Elaine just picked up Elaine on your committee, so you got it.
Elaine, you've been voluntold.
I saw it. You posted it. I saw it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, it's definitely an economic component to it, and that's the fear with a lot of people feeling like they might have to give up, and their piece of the pie might get smaller, and it's just not true. We look at the impact of COVID, and then the stimulus and funding that's come out of that. No one sees that as reparations, but people who are harmed from it, and just by the restrictions, the government placed, or just the pandemic itself, those bailouts that went to small businesses, that went to families, that went to various industries, those are forms of reparations. So it's really how it's worded, how it's colored, but there's individuals who feel like, again, you talked about minority leader, just from Panel now, his comments. and not being responsible for something that happened 150 years ago. But I am willing to support the work on it because it's something I'm passionate about, and I didn't realize that was Commissioner Cannon's. Was that your partner who first introduced that in last August?
Yes, she raised that in her quote interview with Lansing City Council when there were a couple of vacancies on council.
Yeah. And so
might be one of our experts, Pat.
Yeah. So I'm in support of it. It is a lot of work to be done, and I think what can be interesting is looking at the cost of poverty, looking at the cost of reduced opportunities, the cost of social determinants of health, and not having opportunities for gainful employment, for equal opportunity with education, housing, and things of that sort, and the bigger economic impact that it has on families with related to housing, school, employment, and that how giving people these opportunities, funding to get ahead, could essentially save dollars with policing and healthcare and other industries. And that's where the conversation needs to go. And that's how you make, doing something like this affordable and entertaining people, where it's saving money on the back end. Because it's definitely about dollars.
This point I'll just raise because I don't know what the answer is. Maybe you all have an opinion on it. Reparations, as we are currently thinking of it or defining it, has been for more than people who are African American. I worked with a lady many years ago in state government who was a communications assistant for Lieutenant Governor Arthur Griffith. And Jane is Japanese American, and her parents were both part of that group of Japanese who were interned during World War II, and they received compensation for that I would call it incarceration. That resulted in them being able to buy a nice home. At least that amount of money helped start that. So Jane and her family were beneficiaries of reparations-like activities. She may be interested in attending and may express a couple of her own thoughts on the subject.
That would be fabulous. And I'm in Germany. Germany, I think, still pays reparations to Jewish families from the Holocaust. So there's lots of international examples we can see too. Absolutely. It's a very, very, very huge topic with a lot of history to read up about.
I think Commissioner Davis Dunn hit on something. A lot of times and many of you hit on this, it's the framing of the things. You can look at, say, EBT, WIC, welfare. Technically, they're a farm subsidy, but it's all how you look at the framing of what it is and how they're looking where it's coming from. At the end of the day, yes, it's for people to have food, but it's the problem. Because you look at the food markets, even as you look at what happened to the dairy market when schools closed. Dairy in public schools is a farm subsidy. So there's many of these things that are built in different ways that look like one thing that are actually something else. And I think maybe it's just a matter of somehow of us getting over the hurdle of, but obviously we know what the hurdles are and they're really unfortunate, but maybe in the reframing, that may be the questions how do we reframe this reparations question into what it really is, which is an economic or a social justice type question. How do we reframe reparations so we can actually